This is the first of two programs relating to the proposition that the Bible is ahead of science. The Bible, of course, claims to be inspired by God. It claims to be a divine manual for mankind, revealing who God is and the purpose of creation and life. And if this is so, if God created all things and if he's omniscient, well then he must know all there is to know about science, because this is what omniscience, omniscience, actually means. If God created the heavens and the earth and all forms of life on the earth, well then he must know the inner workings of it all and how all the building blocks are all arranged, from the gigantic galaxies right down to the microscopic microbes and atoms. And if he was the inspiration behind the Bible, you would expect to find some sort of evidence of this somewhere in the biblical writings, which I believe to be the case. Not that I'm saying the Bible is a scientific treatise or textbook referring to atoms, microns, viruses, DNA, etc., by name. No, it clearly does not do that. If the Bible had used those terminologies, it would not have made sense or been understood for the most part of human history till the microscope was invented. The Bible was not written for scientists. That is, it's not a scientific textbook with scientific formulas and equations. However, when the microscope is pointed in its direction, it is seen to contain some basic scientific facts. Facts which were hidden and unknown to the world when they were written, and for centuries afterwards, for the most part of history, in fact. These basic scientific facts recorded in the Bible cover quite a range of subjects, from medicine to biology to physics and astronomy, etc. And during these programs, we'll look at these and other sciences in the light of some quite remarkable statements. That is, statements made by the Bible in relation to them long before science knew anything about them. And we'll see that modern science confirms and supports the Bible and encourages us to stick with it. It's only since the 19th century that scientists have appreciated that there are basically 5 fundamentals of science. That is time, force, action, space, and matter. Little did they realise that thousands of years before, the first verse in the Bible declared this. It says, in the beginning, that speaks of time. God speaks of force. Created, that's action. The heavens, that's space. And earth, that's matter. From the very beginning of the Bible, it is affirmed that God created life and all living things. In the past, attempts were made to create life from non-living inanimate matter. The theory was called spontaneous generation. Scientists concluded that spontaneous generation was impossible, but evolutionists still kept trying to prove the theory. So far, no one has been able to create life, so the Bible teaching that only God can create life still remains true. Genesis chapter 1 refers to the creation of fish, fowl, animals, and man. And in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 39, the Apostle Paul states that there are 4 different kinds of flesh. That is the flesh of humans, beasts, birds, and fish. These 4 types of flesh are indeed different in their biochemical makeup. As is stated here, it wasn't till 1930 and the advent of the electron microscope that science declared there was a difference in the cells of different species. Until that time, all cell structure was believed to be the same. Now, how could Paul, a simple tent maker and preacher, know about cell structures 2,000 years ago? Genesis chapter 1 also states that all living things reproduce after their kind, that is, according to the same species. This, of course, is no surprise to us today, because we know from the laws of genetics and hereditary that things do reproduce according to their own kind. According to Genesis chapter 1, the whole material universe was created by the Spirit of God, which is the power of God. And in the New Testament, the Greek word used for the power of God is inertia, from which we derive the word energy. The Greek word dunamis is also used, from which we get the English word dynamic or dynamite, which of course relates to explosive power. Now, Einstein expressed in his famous equation that E equals mc squared, which in very simple terms means energy is the basis of all matter. That is, matter is compact energy. This means that before the material universe came into being, that is, before matter occupied space, it must have existed somewhere in the form of a massive, mind-boggling source of energy or power. And as a result of an explosive release of that energy, the material universe was formed and flew out into space in all directions. And it's still flying out. In 1929, Edwin Hubble, an astronomer, discovered that the universe is still expanding, that is, moving away from where it was originally released. And Hubble telescope findings in 2018 suggest that the universe is expanding much faster than was expected. If these findings are correct, science confirms Genesis chapter 1 that the material universe has not always existed. It had a beginning and must have involved a massive, mind-boggling source of energy. And this is what the Bible teaches. For example, the words of Jeremiah on the screen, where he says, "Ah, Lord God, behold, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power." Notice that? By your great power and outstretched arm, there is nothing too hard for you. Jeremiah starts his statement with that word of exclamation, "Ah." It's a groan, really, caused by the contemplation of the mind-boggling power that must have been involved in the making of the universe. Now, it's stated in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1, that the heavens and the earth were finished. The word finished there indicates an action completed in the past, without continuing effects into the future. That is, creation was finished. It was a once and for all event. It ended. In the science of physics, that is exactly the implication of the first law of thermodynamics, often referred to as the law of conservation of energy matter, which states that in nature, neither energy nor matter can be created or destroyed. It was because of this law that the steady state theory, also known as the continuous creation theory, was discarded. This theory stated that at points in the universe called ertons, matter was being created on a continual basis. New stars were being formed to replace old ones. But such an idea contradicted the first law of thermodynamics. Indeed, there is no creation occurring today. It is finished, exactly as stated in Genesis. But how could the Bible have known this kind of advanced scientific information 6,000 years ago? There are also several places in the Bible which refer to the earth wearing out like a garment. Psalm 102 verse 26, Isaiah 51 verse 6, Hebrews chapter 1 verse 11. According to the second law of thermodynamics, energy is becoming less and less available, not only to planet Earth, but the whole universe. Simply stated, This means that everything ultimately is wearing out or running down. It means that theoretically the whole universe eventually will experience an event described as its heat death, when there will no longer be any energy. This fact was not recognised by science till the 20th century. Well, how did the Bible know that long before, when it talked about everything wearing out? I would now like to say something in relation to the subject of geography. Long before the Greeks concluded that the earth was round and not flat, the Bible not only taught that it was round, but also that the sea and the atmosphere encircled it. Isaiah 40 verse 22, written about 700 BC, which was read to us tonight, refers to God sitting above the circle of the earth. Here, the shape of the earth is described in terms of a circle. Other translations say God sits over the round earth. Proverbs 8 verse 27, written round about 900 BC, says, quote, God set a compass upon the ocean. Other translations say he drew a circle on the ocean. That is, he made the earth with its ocean round. The book of Job, which dates back between 1600 and 2000 BC, refers to God who, quote, walks in the circuit of heaven. Heaven refers to the atmosphere above the earth. It is saying that Earth's atmosphere, like Earth itself, is curved like an arch. And so it is, as satellite pictures in particular demonstrate. Regarding the depth of the earth, in the past, when it was believed the earth was flat, no one knew how deep it was. Some were afraid that if you dug down too far into the earth or went down too deep into caves, you might drop out the other side. But Jeremiah 31 verse 37, written around 600 BC, affirms that if the heavens, that space, can be measured and the foundations of the earth be explored, God will cast away Israel. That is, he would allow the Jews to be exterminated. This is a divine challenge to eternity. It says it is as impossible for man to measure space and penetrate the bowels of the earth as it is for God to allow the Jewish race to disappear. So far, this statement has been vindicated. In spite of the great depths to which man has dug into the earth, he has hardly scratched the surface. And due to space being endless, it cannot be measured. And the Jews, in spite of many attempts to exterminate them, they have survived. As we read here in Jeremiah 30 verse 11, for I am with you, says the Lord, to save you. Though I make a full end of all nations where I have scattered you, yet I will not make a full end of you, but I will correct you in measure and will not leave you altogether unpunished. Up until the time of Galileo, around 1600 AD, it was thought that the earth was stationary and that night and day was caused by the sun travelling around it. But a statement in the Bible, in James 1 verse 17, refers to God as the Father of lights, that is, creator of all heavenly bodies. And then it says, with whom there is no variableness or shadow caused by turning. It's implied in this statement that the variation of light and darkness on heavenly bodies is caused by them turning, that is, revolving on their axis. Regarding gravitation, up until the late 1600s, the principle of gravitation was not known or understood. But God, of course, is never in darkness. It was once inconceivable that something as big and heavy as planet Earth could just hang in space and not be sitting on something or be held up by something. And so the ancients held to all sorts of silly superstitions as to what supported the planet. Now, if the Bible merely expressed human views and opinions, you would expect it to advocate an unscientific concept consistent with current beliefs. But it doesn't. In one brief statement, in Job 26, verse 7, written nearly 4,000 years ago, it says, quote, God, hangs the earth upon nothing. That is, the earth is suspended in space, not held by anything, not sitting on anything. Could you ever find so few words, 6 words, which so aptly describe the true position of the planet in space? It's common knowledge today that if the planet Earth was 1% further away from the sun, it would be frozen over. And if we were 5% closer to the sun, seas would be turned into steam. If the moon was closer or larger, the gravitational pull would be stronger and tides would be so enormous they would roll over the mountains and the cities. If the moon was smaller or further away, there'd be no tides and less gravitation. The meticulous design involved in Earth's position in the solar system in order to sustain life makes it very, very hard to attribute it all to blind chance and not intelligent design. Now would be a good time to focus on the subject of astronomy, which is one of the oldest sciences of man. Up until the invention of the telescope in Galileo's time, it was believed that only the stars that could be seen with the naked eye, that's around about 4,000, were all the stars that existed. But several thousand years before, the Bible compared the stars to the grains of sand on Earth's seashore. In this verse from Genesis 22, verse 17, the stars of heaven are compared with the grains of sand on Earth's seashore. As a result of modern telescopes and astronomy, this is not regarded as a highly exaggerated comparison today. Jeremiah 33, verse 22 says that as it is impossible to count the grains of sand, so it is impossible to count the host, that is, the army of stars in heaven. It's quite clear that the author of the Bible could see beyond the 4,000 stars, which humans can only see and count with the naked eye. It has been estimated that there are 200 trillion stars in our galaxy alone, and there are trillions of other galaxies, each containing trillions of stars. The number involved is truly astronomical, mind-boggling to say the least. Now, even in Galileo's time, it was believed that the sun was standing still while the planets travelled around it on their orbits. But it was later discovered that the sun is travelling through space at 1 million kilometres, that's about 600,000 miles an hour, on a vast circuit, an orbit so large it would take over 200 million years to complete a single orbit, and it takes the Earth and the other planets with it. Believe it or not, 3,000 years ago, the Bible referred to the sun going on a circuit through the heavens. The reference is on the screen from Psalm 19, verse 6, which says, "The sun's circuit is to the ends of the earth." Before leaving the subject of the sun, we read in Job 38, verse 19, an interesting statement. It refers to the way to the dwelling place of light. In this statement, light is said to travel in a way. The Hebrew word means a travelled path or road. Until the 17th century, it was believed that light was transmitted instantaneously. But science has since discovered that light is a form of energy called radiant energy. And this radiant energy travels in electromagnetic waves in a straight line or a path. And it travels at a speed of 300,000 kilometres. That's 185,000 miles per second. That is over 1,000 million kilometres per hour. Concerning darkness, in Job 38 verse 19, the following question is put by God to Job. He says, "Where is the place of darkness?" Up until the time of modern astronomy, it was hard to conceive how darkness could be a place. Human knowledge and experience of darkness indicated it was a state, not a place. The language in Job 38 verse 19, however, fits well with certain phenomena discovered in space known as black holes, as you see in this picture. As pointed out here, there is a supermassive black hole at the centre of the Milky Way galaxy. A black hole is caused by a star or galaxy collapsing into itself. Since light is composed of matter, it cannot escape the implosion. It's sucked into the centre, resulting in the words of Job 38 verse 19, that is, a place of darkness. Regarding astrology, for a long time it has been regarded as unscientific by astronomers due to it being based on a faulty geocentric concept. The faulty concept originated back in the days when it was thought the earth was the centre of the universe. But the Bible rejected it as a pseudoscience and condemned it because it distracted people from the true word of prophecy in the Bible. And there are many quotations that relate to that. Astrology is very much a hit and miss affair. As the saying goes, you win some, you lose some. A bit like the lottery. And this will always be the case when predictions of a general nature are made, which predictably occur for most people at some time or other. But Bible prophecy is entirely different. It's in a league of its own. It predicts the unpredictable, the big time stuff involving the movements and destinies of nations, the whole world, in fact, centuries ahead of time. Regarding the precision and predictability of the orbits of the heavenly bodies, the Bible has this to say in Jeremiah chapter 31, from which chapter I quoted earlier. In verse 35 to 36 of Jeremiah 31, we read, "Thus says the Lord, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the fixed order of the moon and of the stars for a light by night. If this fixed order ceases to operate before me, says the Lord, then the people of Israel shall cease from being a nation before me forever." It's now 2,500 years since that statement was made, and the heavenly bodies still maintain their circuits and courses. And although Israel ceased to be a nation in AD 70, due to the Romans forcefully evicting them from their land into exile, they were, as prophesied in the Bible, regathered to their land, and they became a nation today. In relation to the science of astronomy, Psalm 19 makes an interesting point. It says that the heavenly bodies have no speech and use no words. That is, no audible voice will come from other planets out in space. Secular man, of course, who doesn't believe the Bible, takes no notice of such statements and has built radio telescopes all around the world, hoping to pick up voices or messages transmitted by somebody out there in space. Astronomers have discovered that galaxies do give off many kinds of radiation, including radio waves, ultraviolet light, visible light, X-rays, and energy impulses. But so far, the Bible statement in Psalm 19 has held true and proved to be absolutely scientific. No audible voice, no coherent communication has come from outer space. Science could have saved itself a lot of money and a lot of time if it had believed the Bible. I think it's rather sad that men spend millions and millions of dollars on radio telescopes, and they spend day and night hoping to pick up at least an unintelligible bleep from space, yet ignore and disregard volumes of intelligent messages handed on a plate from the very creator of the universe himself. The point was made earlier that the Bible teaches God is omniscient. He's an omniscientist. That is, his knowledge is infinite. There's nothing that he does not know. If this is the case, he would know the number of stars and be able to give them all names. Psalm 147 on the screen declares that this is indeed the case. And if this is the case, then you can be sure he knows you, and he knows your name. He knows all about you. I'd now like to turn attention to the science of hydrology, the water cycle, which involves the process of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. The Europeans didn't understand the water cycle, until the 15th century AD, but the Bible understood and taught it over 3,500 years ago and gave good, simple descriptions of it. There are statements in the book of Job and Psalms, etc., referring to the heat of the sun causing the sea to evaporate into clouds, which, driven by the wind, float over the land and release rain to fructify the earth. In ancient times, it was not understood that the salty sea could evaporate and become pure drinking water, and that fluffy soft clouds contain millions of litres of water. But the Bible knew all about this 4,000 years ago. Talking about the ocean, long before man sailed around the earth, when no one knew the full extent of the world's oceans, the Bible taught that all the seas on the earth are connected and form one continuous ocean around the globe. This is what we read in Genesis 1 verse 9. God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." The words "one place" means single mass, that is, one continuous body of water, which is how it is with the ocean. The earth is really just one huge ocean, broken here and there by continents and islands. Regarding ocean currents, the notion that there are huge ocean currents was first published by Benjamin Franklin in 1786. He postulated about ocean currents that are fixed and in their place, always flowing in the same direction. But reference to the currents was made in the Bible 3,000 years ago, in fact, in Psalm 8, verse 8. It refers to the fish of the sea and whatever passes through the paths of seas. For centuries, this reference to the paths of the seas just didn't make sense. However, we now know that ocean currents are fixed in their place, always flowing in the same direction. They could not be better described than paths of the seas. The Gulf Stream alone carries 5,000 times the volume of the Mississippi River. Up until the 20th century, people didn't know that there were springs of water in the sea. But reference is made in Job 38, verse 16 to, quote, "the springs of the sea." Now, skeptics used to scoff at this statement. But in 1977, oceanographers found freshwater springs at the bottom of the oceans pouring forth huge volumes of water. There is also an interesting prophecy given in Deuteronomy 33 verse 19, given 3,500 years ago, which refers to, quote, sucking abundance out of the seas and treasures out of the sand. This prophecy never made much sense till more recent times when oil, gas, iron sand, etc. has been extracted. The ocean has been called a liquid mine due to what is able to be sucked out of it for the benefit of mankind. Prior to the advent of diving suits and submarines, it was thought that the ocean floor was just one great level plain. But today, we know that the ocean floor is just as irregular as the surface of the land. The seabed, like the land, consists of mountains and valleys as well as level plains. This is just one of a multitude of mountains under the ocean. The Bible refers to the prophet Jonah being swallowed by a large fish taken down to the base of the mountains. The Bible obviously knew that there were mountains under the ocean that long ago, nearly 3,000 years ago. The story of Jonah, of course, used to be a target for the skeptics until the same thing actually happened on two separate occasions in the 19th century during whaling expeditions. Each man fell overboard and was swallowed. When the whale was finally harpooned and cut open, the man on each occasion was found inside, unconscious but alive and bleached white. This is well documented and their names are given. Now, for a long time, it was never thought possible that the vast oceans of the world could ever become polluted, endangering all sea life. But the Bible prophesied that they would. A prophecy in Revelation 16 verse 3 refers to every living creature dying in the sea. In view of the staggering amount of pollution that's being poured into the oceans all around the world, environmentalists are actually expressing concern about the very thing the Bible prophesied in Revelation 2,000 years ago. I'd now like to say something in relation to the science of meteorology, which relates to all aspects of the atmosphere, including the wind cycles. In bygone ages, the ancients did not understand how the wind originated, and they held to some very superstitious and unscientific beliefs. It was actually only during the latter half of the 20th century that man came to understand fully the wind cycle or circulation. The ancients did not understand that wind has a circulation in motion. The circuit is actually quite large, so large that as it blows past us, we cannot tell by our physical senses that it is travelling in a circular direction. Well, the Bible knew. Back around 970 BC, Ecclesiastes 1 verse 6 made this statement, quote, "The wind blows to the south and turns to the north, round and round it goes, ever returning to its course." Now, while we're on the subject of wind, Job 28 verse 25 refers to the weight of the wind. Interestingly enough, it was not until 1643 AD that an Italian scientist, Torricelli, who you see here, discovered by means of a glass tube and some mercury that the atmosphere, that is the air that we breathe, does actually have weight. This weight is often referred to as barometric pressure, and as a result of his experiments, we now have barometers. I'd now like to direct attention to this statement in Job 37 verse 18, which refers to the sky being as strong as a molten looking glass, that is, mirror. The molten mirror refers to a brass mirror. Brass used to be highly polished by the ancients to act as a mirror. The same metal was used for making things that had to withstand fire, including shields, which had to deflect stones, swords, and fiery missiles. So then, the Bible likens the sky to brass. The significance of this idea of a solid atmosphere has only been understood and appreciated in more modern times. This is due to knowledge of the enormous weight of the air that surrounds our planet. To pass through so much matter is not easy, and we now know that the atmosphere acts as a powerful shield in more ways than one. In this picture can be seen a meteorite of perhaps 1,000 tons being deflected from its course by Earth's atmosphere. It's believed that Psalm 47 verse 9 also refers to the protective shield produced by Earth's atmosphere. This verse refers to, quote, the shields of the earth, and says they belong to God. That is, He is the creator, He is in control of them. It is, in fact, the air resistance of the atmosphere and its friction that causes meteorites which don't get deflected to burn up as they penetrate the atmosphere. Either that or become greatly reduced in size, lessening their impact upon the earth. In this picture, you can see 3 stages of a meteorite exploding as it hits Earth's atmospheric shield. And in this picture, you can see 2 stages. In this picture can be seen a cluster of meteorites hitting Earth's atmospheric shield. In ancient times, many strange and superstitious ideas were held regarding the origin, nature, and purpose of meteorites. Some believed they were the ammunition of the gods, hurled through space at each other or thrown down on Earth when they were angry with man. And, as could be expected, the ancients, and not so ancient, venerated and revered any pieces of rock like this one here that fell down from above. But the Bible never advocates such unscientific views on meteors, nor treats them as objects of worship. Quite the opposite, actually. It rejects such notions and regards them as foolish and superstitious, as we read in Jeremiah 10, verse 2-3, Acts 19, verse 35. It's believed that some meteorites come from the asteroid belt, which is a belt of whirling rocks which lies between Mars and Jupiter, as depicted here on the screen. There are thousands of them, and they vary greatly in size. Astronomers, in fact, track them and name them. The smaller ones are around 1 kilometre in diameter. The largest one to be discovered is 772 kilometres. That's 480 miles in diameter. Some asteroids move in oval-shaped orbits that bring them near the Earth at certain times. Over a long period of time, these changes can lead to collisions. Such collisions send hunks out of orbit into space, some of which can end up hitting planets in the solar system, including planet Earth. Significantly enough, an end-time prophecy in the book of Revelation, in chapter 8, verse 8, refers to, quote, something like a mountain burning with fire, plunging into the sea. A mountain burning with fire would be quite an appropriate description of the rocky chunk of an asteroid on fire as a result of the friction caused by entering Earth's atmosphere. If so, the carnage caused by this would certainly contribute towards certain end-time prophecies. Some of them predict fearful sights in the heavens, an unprecedented worldwide earthquake, the sea and the waves roaring, and people's hearts failing them for fear. Talking about earthquakes, long before geology became a specialised science and geologists traced a fault line through the Mount of Olives immediately east of Jerusalem, which you see here, the Bible predicted that an earthquake would split the mount in half at the second coming of Jesus Christ. Zechariah 14, verse 3 to 4 says this, "On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, with half of the mountain moving north and half moving south." This diagram illustrates the split that will take place. You don't find predictions like this in astrology charts. I'd now like to say something about the aurora. In Roman mythology, morning dewdrops were believed to be tears from the goddess Aurora. She is supposed to have shed them over the death of her son Memnon, who was killed at Troy. She was also regarded as the mother of the wind. Many superstitious and unscientific explanations were given by ancient philosophers, scholars, and pagan priests in the past. And if the Bible had been conceived by man, expressing the views held by man at the time, you would expect it to conform to the unscientific theories of the day and therefore prove to be unscientific today. However, such is not the case. Nothing is written anywhere in the Bible that supports superstitious theories in relation to the aurora. It's believed that the aurora is referred to in Job 37, verse 22, which simply states that, quote, "out of the north comes golden splendour." It's clearly not referring to the sun, which comes out of the east, not the north. And there are no pagan misconceptions or unscientific embellishments added to the statement in the Bible. All right, let's move on to the subject of lightning and thunder, which also come under the heading of the science of meteorology. It hardly needs to be pointed out that in ancient times, when the Bible was written, and for centuries after, some very superstitious and unscientific views were held in relation to lightning and thunder. The Japanese believed that thunder was caused by a demon named Raijin, beating on drums as depicted here. The Norwegians' vengeful god, named Thor, is depicted here brandishing his mighty hammer. The Scandinavians believed thunder and lightning was caused by this. During Old Testament times, Hadad was one of the chief gods of the pagans, and on this ancient limestone relief that was found, he's depicted as storm god holding a bolt of lightning in his hand. However, it's common knowledge today, of course, that it's lightning which produces the thunder. But in ancient times, the relationship between lightning and thunder was not actually understood. It has always been obvious that a peal of thunder follows a flash of lightning, but not so obvious that lightning caused the thunder. Man's natural senses of sight and hearing would not naturally or automatically reach such a conclusion. And this is because, mainly due to the interval of time that takes place between the flash and the sound. It was not known that light travels faster than sound, so it was naturally assumed that if thunder was caused by lightning, you would hear it when the flash occurred. It took science some time to understand the expansion and contraction process of the air, a process which is caused by the heat of the lightning, resulting in a great air wave which thunders some seconds later. The Bible, however, although written in ancient times, never advanced unscientific or superstitious notions about thunder and lightning. Job 28 verse 26, Job 38 verse 25 refers to, quote, the lightning of the thunder. That is, lightning is the cause or origin of the thunder. Thunder comes from the lightning. That's what the statement is saying. This is just a simple scientific truth which nations in ancient times did not fully understand, but it has been in the Bible for 4,000 years. Now, there's another scientific aspect in relation to lightning that I would like to mention. An article in the science section of a magazine claimed that something has been discovered on which rain depends. Namely, a discharge of electricity of some sort, be it a bright, invisible lightning flash or a silent, invisible electrical discharge. In relation to this, it's interesting to note that a statement in Psalm 135 verse 7 says this. It says, God makes lightning for the rain. Notice that it doesn't say lightning is made with the rain, but for the rain, which is appropriate if an electrical discharge is required. Now, Job 38 verse 25 says, God made a path for the lightning. Many have taken this to be poetical or metaphorical language, because where the bolt of lightning comes down, it looks like a path. However, when a lightning bolt strikes from cloud to earth, it superheats the air through which it comes, so that you get a return stroke of energy that goes from the earth to cloud through that path that it has made. So the lightning actually works with a reflective bolt. And this reflective bolt goes back up the path that has been created by superheated air. That's where you get the bang. So, in fact, scientifically, you have a path within the process of the lightning reciprocal stroke. So much then for lightning and thunder. Snow is also encompassed by the science of meteorology. And there's something interesting said about it in the Bible that I would like to mention. Snow, of course, is the name given for the shimmering ice crystals that form. This formation occurs when the water vapor in the cloud freezes. And there is a significant statement made in relation to it in the Bible. It's in Job 38 verse 22, which is a question put by God to Job. The question is, have you entered into the treasures of the snow? This question implies that treasure of some sort is hidden or concealed in the snow. And to find it, one has to enter into the snow to see it. The word enter here means examine, explore, investigate, penetrate. For centuries, the reference to examining treasure in the snow seemed a silly, senseless statement until the invention of the microscope. Through this instrument, human eyes were opened up to endless treasures hidden in the snow. Not treasures of monetary value, but treasures of beautiful shapes and designs. Under the microscope, snow proved to be a kaleidoscope of ever-changing symmetrical patterns. Every snowflake is a tiny six-sided crystal, examples of which you're seeing on the screen. Every one is different. No two snow crystals are the same. All snow crystals are built on the same plan, the hexagon. This selection of snowflakes, at first glance, might all seem to be the same, but a close inspection of each one reveals they are all quite different. And so we ask the question, how could the Bible have known about these treasures of art, the beautiful designs in snow and snowflakes? How could it know thousands of years before man discovered them through the microscope? The Bible, of course, attributes it to the inspiration of God, the creator of the universe and the untold variety of things on planet Earth. Take the human fingerprint, for example. As with the snowflake, every one is different. No two are the same. One of the Our World programs on TV stated that the chances of two people having the same fingerprint is 1 in 10 trillion. The same applies to the DNA molecule, our genetic blueprint discovered in 1953. No two DNA molecules are the same, resulting in each person being different from every other person on the planet. I want to conclude this program by saying something about the science of aerodynamics, especially in relation to the flight of aeroplanes. From time immemorial, since man observed birds and insects flying, he has wished that he could have wings and fly. Back in biblical times, it certainly seemed impossible that man would ever be able to fly. The facts and the forces of nature just seemed to be totally against it. Man could only conceive of himself flying with his own set of wings, like a bird, but his body was the wrong shape and he was too heavy. Right up to just a few centuries ago, man could only conceive of flying by leaping off a cliff with a pair of wings strapped to his arms, which was not very successful. The prospect of flying seemed impossible. Yet, 2,700 years ago, the Bible affirmed man would eventually fly, not just above the ground, but actually among the clouds. Isaiah 60, verse 8 says, quote, "Who are these who fly among the clouds like doves to their nests?" This is actually a prophecy referring to the Jews being airlifted through the clouds back to their own land of Israel from countries into which they were dispersed 2,000 years before. The prophecy compares their return with doves returning to their nests, and the 20th century witnessed the fulfillment of this after the Holocaust. Some quite dramatic airlifts were involved in the return of the Jews to their land from various countries, but well, that's another story. Another prophecy which refers to Israel flying is in Isaiah 11 verse 14, where it says, "They will fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines." The Philistines in biblical times, as seen on this map, lived in the territory now known as the Gaza Strip, down here. The name Palestine actually derives from Philistine. As a result of Hamas and other anti-Israel terrorists in the Gaza Strip firing rockets into Israel, Israel has retaliated by sending fighter jets over them, which is virtually what the prophecy in Isaiah said would happen. During the beginning of the 20th century, when the Wright brothers started to fly, who could have believed that before the century ended, man would conquer space, get to the moon, and build space stations. A statement in an end-time prophecy in Isaiah 24 verse 21, which refers to the powers of those who are up in the heavens, indicates that the Bible not only foresaw the time when man would fly among the clouds, but also when he would venture beyond into space. But the Bible also foresaw the time when Jesus would be seen coming in the clouds, returning from space, from heaven, in power and great glory to set up his kingdom of righteousness and peace upon the earth. The personal, visible return of Christ to earth is a major Bible teaching. There are 1,520 direct and indirect references to it in the Old Testament and 318 verses in the New Testament. His return is the only hope for the planet, that is for sure, but that, of course, is another story. His own personal promise is he will come quickly, and hopefully our response will be, even so, come, Lord Jesus.